Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Amy Osher, host of the Naples Daily news show Behind the Headlines. We'd like to welcome our in-studio guests, online viewers, the panelists, and of course our candidates this evening for school board. Each of the candidates were supplied a breakdown of our rules of conduct. We have them posted on the door if you'd like to view them as well. It outlines that we'll begin with a 2-minute opening statement by each one of the candidates. During the questioning period, they'll each get 1 minute to answer each question. We're running a time clock on that. We'll give them a little bit of notice and then make sure that they're wrapped up within that minute. At the end of which, we'll have a closing statement for 1.5 minutes, and we'll intervene if it gets too long. I'm the moderator this evening, and if I feel there needs to be a rebuttal, I'll be making that decision on the fly. All the questions, including the ones submitted by the public, had been vetted for their suitability. Now, on to the rules of conduct, which were supplied also in advance. We ask that there are no signs, t-shirts, or handout materials supporting any candidate or cause. Cell phones must be silenced, please. No pictures or videos may be taken during the forum. No speaking from the audience. No show of support for or against any participant, candidate, panelist, moderator, to include clapping, cheering, whistling, or booing. There'll be time to clap at the end of the program. The Naples Daily News reserves the right to deny entry to any individual. Anyone not adhering to these rules may be asked to leave. Now we'd like to introduce our panelists. We have editorial editor Alan Bartlett with the Naples Daily News, followed by Brent Batten, a columnist for the Naples Daily News, and Chad Oliver, anchor and political correspondent for NBC2. And we'd like to please welcome our candidates for Collier County School Board. In District 2, we have Stephanie Lucarelli and Louise Penta. District 4, Erick Carter and Lee Dixon. So for the first 2 rounds, the panelists will ask questions to be answered by each candidate in the order they're called upon. The third round will be viewer-submitted and reader-submitted questions. The next round, we'll get some questions from the audience. I believe everybody had a card and a pen at your table. If you'd like to get those, someone will pick them up later, and we'll quickly review them and make sure that they're not repeating something we've already said. And then if there's time, we'll go for 1 more round of questions by the panelists and then give you the chance to do the closing statements. So let's get started, and how about you, Alan?
Thank you, candidates, for joining us tonight, and also everyone here in the audience. Thank you for coming out to this.
The opening statements, if you'd like to kick those off for them. Okay. Stephanie, if you could start with your opening statement.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming here tonight, and thanks to the Naples Daily News for hosting this. My name is Stephanie Lucarelli, and I'm running for Collier County School Board because I strongly believe in quality public education for all kids. We've heard a lot of talk over the last couple of years about parent involvement. Well, I'm a parent of 4 children in Collier County Public Schools. My kids range in age from 16 down to 6. So I have 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 2 still in elementary. My children also span all of the ability levels, as I have a special needs child and a gifted child. I've been deeply involved for the last 12 years in everything going on here in Collier County Public Schools. I've been a volunteer, I've been a substitute teacher, I've sat on district level committees as well as being involved in the classrooms and at the schools as the vice president of a PTO organization. My background is in science. I have my bachelor's of science degree from Rutgers University, and I taught 7th and 8th grade science in New Jersey before moving down here in 2002. The things that I feel are most important to us for our schools are academic excellence, of course, and we can achieve that by supporting our teachers, by lobbying the state for more resources and to minimize testing. We also need to have fiscal integrity. We need to be sure that we are maximizing our resources and that the money that we have is going to the right places. I'm also interested in making sure that our kids have a clear pathway to college and careers. And we need to emphasize and continue to communicate all of the programs that we have available here in Collier County. And I ask you for your support and your vote. I'm Stephanie Lucarelli.
you, Stephanie. Louise?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. I feel very fortunate to be here tonight because I woke up this morning and I couldn't even talk. So I'm going to try and get through this evening. Are your kids or grandkids getting a better education than you did? I am Louise Penta, and I am a candidate for Collier County School Board. I am a mother, a grandmother, a sister, a mentor, a board member, and most importantly, a strong proponent of quality public education for all the kids in Collier County. It is our obligation, and it is their right. Having helped raise over $7 million for education in the Immokalee district, I know what kids need firsthand. I have been the mentor of 5 children, all of whom now are in college and doing exceedingly well. I have worked in all the schools in Immokalee, and like I said, know firsthand what is needed. Tonight we are here to discuss the substantive issues of our district and what is best for our kids. And I think during all the campaigning we have kind of lost sight of that. And I think that should be our primary focus, that we're all about kids and what we want for our kids. And what that is a quality education. I am a proponent of helping to overturn Common Core and bringing back hopefully a traditional education for our kids where they will learn good math, good reading, and good writing skills to take them into fields that they can be graduate from 12th grade and be college and career ready. I would support doing an internal audit of the budget. I think the budget needs to be looked at line by line to make fiscal spending a little bit more reasonable without raising taxes. I also, as I said, have been a mentor, and I'm a proponent of mentoring in our schools. I'd love to start a pilot program in that regard. There are so many resources here in Collier County that we could use as far as retired people. I would love to work in our schools, and I think that would be a great thing to start for our kids. Our kids need more help, and I would support that.
Erick?
Hi, thank you all for coming out. My name is Erick Carter, and I'm running for School Board District 4. I moved to Collier County in 1992, and as soon as I moved here, I started working with the school system. I volunteered at Gulfview Middle School to help direct a play, and since then, we've been involved in the community. My wife and I have a child that goes to Gulfview Middle School right now. I've worked with Bread of Life. I've worked with Collier Literacy, all kind of different organizations. So I've seen the needs of the children, and not only that, I'm a graduate from Lorenzo Walker Technical College. And in 1996, I graduated from that school, and my wife and I own a successful business. In the recession, we knew how to cut budget, cut our spending, and grow our business. So we grew from 2,000 to 4,000 square foot and tripled our staff from 6 to 18, and we did it during the recession. 67 out of 100 jobs in the United States in the recession were formed from small businesses. It was a small business that pulled us out of the recession. That's why, for me, a career to a pathway is so vital and so important. We have programs at Lorenzo Walker Technical College where a child can go in to an airplane mechanic course. It's a 14-month course. It's $6,500 to take the course, and most kids through federal grants graduate with no debt. The starting pay on that course is $55,000. If you take a look at an average attorney and what they start off in the United States out of college, it's $75,000. We also have programs out in Immokalee through Caterpillar that donated a lot of equipment so these kids can learn how to work on this heavy machinery. I talked to a gentleman out there who's in charge of that program. There's a child that graduated and went in as an 8-year veteran, started making $80,000 a year plus benefits. So these are things we need to look at, because as we move forward in Florida, we know that 38% of our job force in the state of Florida is going to be certificate-based jobs, compared to 14% will need a 4-year degree to get a job. So we need to make sure we're doing the education the right way, and we also need to make sure for those who want to go into college and do continue into college that they have the right pathway and the right way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lee Dixon. I am running for Collier County School Board in District 4. Let me start by telling you a couple things about myself. I am the oddity and the rarity that I am a native Floridian. I was born at Homestead Air Force Base in Homestead, Florida. to a father who served 33 years in the United States Air Force, including the last 12 of which he finished his career as the crew chief on Air Force One, flying the president around the world. So I moved over here to Naples in 1995 after finishing school at the University of Miami. I met my wife, who lives here and has worked as a Collier County paramedic here for over 22 years. We have 3 children, one that's already graduated from Naples High, one in middle school, and one in elementary school. And I'm often asked why I'm running. Well, the reason I'm running is my 13-year-old who has autism. I was able to go to the state in June of last year and get a state law changed for the benefit of all special needs kids in the state of Florida, because the school district here in Collier County was breaking the law and not allowing me to utilize the McKay Scholarship Law as the state had intended. Now, we have several factors and several things that we have to look at here in Collier County in our education. One, we have to empower our teachers. We have to do that by freeing them from Common Core. We must get them out from underneath that Common Core that dictates their day, and then we also must pay them as the professionals that they are. As I said, we must get rid of Common Core as much as possible. Now, we know that the state of Florida passed a law allowing us to get rid of Common Core materials in the district. We have to do that. We have to invite our parents back into the district and stop being antagonistic with them. I'm the classic example of them being antagonistic, as they fought me for 2 years just to do the right thing for my son. And I said it shouldn't be that hard for people to do the right thing. Now, we know right now that our school district grade just dropped from A to B. We have to address this. We have to give our children the best possible education that we can. So, again, my name is Lee Dixon. I'm running for Collier County School Board, so I hope to get your vote on August 30th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Alan, we'll have you fire off the first question this evening.
For the answers on this, we'll start down here with Eric and Lee and then come back this way. The question is, you'll go first, Eric. Okay. I received an email Monday. School board member wants to exclude a critic from serving in any volunteer or advisory capacity with the district. Regardless of the specifics of that exchange, my question for you is this: if elected, how would you respond to or interact with those who openly disagree with and criticize you?
Well, I mean, I think everybody has a right to their opinion, and you have to respect that right. I think that's important that you can't get upset over it. I deal with people on a daily basis. Every half hour of my business, I'm dealing with a different person, and I have to deal with criticism and I have to deal with praises. I think what you have to do is you have to look at them both and not take criticism to heart, because you can become angry and bitter. And you have to look at the praises and not take that to heart, because you can get conceited and arrogant. I think you just deal with it on a basis and you be professional about it, and that's how you have to deal with it. I think if somebody criticizes you, that doesn't mean you don't allow them to be involved in a school system or in a function of the school system if they're qualified and capable of doing so.
Okay, Lee, I believe you have 1 minute for these questions. Thank you.
Well, working in the customer service industry, we deal with members and members of the public every day, and we deal with criticism every day and high expectations. So you have to learn to take criticism with a grain of salt and listen to what they say and try to make improvements if there are some to be made. The only time that you should exclude somebody from participating in the process, if they become belligerent, if they are not civil, then maybe. But again, that would be a one, an as-needed basis, or an individual circumstance. But generally speaking, no, you should take criticism and move on and try to make adjustments.
I think that if there's criticism to be had, we've all had our share of it during this campaign, so I think we've learned quite well how to deal with it. But working with somebody on the board that would criticize me or not agree with my thinking or my philosophy, I would approach them and ask them what the issue is, and maybe try to work it out with them. Everybody's entitled to their own difference of opinion, and you have to expect that when you have 4 or 5 different people sitting on a board with different ideas. And I have sat on boards with lots of different people and lots of different personalities. So I think it's just a matter of taking it one-on-one and trying to approach that person in a reasonable manner and seeing what the issue is and trying to work it out.
Very good.
think that there are always going to be people that don't agree with you. And one of the things that about being a school board member is that when you're talking about a district that's serving 46,000 students, there are bound to be parents, teachers, administrators that have a difference of opinion. And so it's to be expected that we will be dealing with that. And I think that the best thing to do with people that have a difference of opinion is let them know that you are willing to listen and that you are going to try whatever it is that you can do to try and work it out. Obviously, there's going to be sometimes where you just have to agree to disagree, but excluding people is never going to bring the trust and respect back to the school board and this district, which is one of my main goals.
Okay, now for the next question, Brent.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for being here this evening. Candidates, please be specific. And Stephanie, if you can keep the microphone working down that way. What specific ideas do you have for improving outreach to non-English speaking households in the school district?
One of the things that sitting on a parent-teacher organization at a school where we have a high population of parents that are non-English speaking is holding meetings in a different language. So whether it's Spanish or Creole, and then having the translation be to English for English-speaking people. And that might be one way that would help make people that speak a different language feel more comfortable coming in. Programs like they have at the out in Golden Gate, and I can't think of the school, but it's a preschool, but they have programs where the kids come in and Grace Place. Thank you, I think I heard it. Where the kids come in, and while they're in a class, the parents are getting lessons on how to speak English. And I've seen that happen at some schools where the literacy society will come in and they will work with people, they volunteer. And as parents drop their children off, they're sitting in the cafeteria getting a language lesson. And so I think that being open and letting parents know that they are welcome and that we will do whatever it is that we can to help them either learn English or also being able to let them speak in their language.
That's okay.
I think adult education for non-speaking parents is necessary and something I'd like to see more widespread in the district. I know there are places that parents can go and take English language classes, but if we would make it easier for them in a time frame that would work with their work schedule and their caring for their children, I think that'd be a great plan for our district. We do have a large diversity of people here, and they really have difficulty dealing with their children and with the school system. So I think that's one thing. Another thing is I would encourage the pre-K program, where kids that are coming into the county take advantage of that program. It's free, it's open to any child, it's voluntary, but take advantage because that year could mean a big difference for kids entering kindergarten that are more prepared to know some basic English and be ahead of the game.
Yeah, we've got to get the kids into preschools as soon as we possibly can. And we've also got to work with the parents. Places like Collier Literacy, and I've worked with them on a volunteer basis, judging some of their Dancing with the Stars competition, which was a lot of fun. But in those things, they had some of their students coming up and talking. And what they were is they were Hispanics that couldn't speak English. And this organization is helping these parents speak English. Then you look at a place like Grace Place, and what they've done is they'll take the parents and put them in one room and the students in another, and they're teaching both the same thing at the same time. They're teaching the parents to be teachers for their students. And that is doing a great service to that community. That's the most dense populated area in Collier County is Golden Gate City, and they're doing a great job, and they're very trusted by the community. Part of the problem is these people come from countries where they don't trust their governments and they don't trust their schools. So it's very difficult for them to come in. They're very apprehensive to come into a school. That's why organizations like Grace Place, they feel more trusted. They feel like they can trust an organization like that. So we need to partner with these type of organizations and help them to be successful as much as we can as a district, because it's going to turn around and help the district be successful as well.
Thank you. And Lee, if you'd like to finish up this round.
Sure. The one thing I haven't heard in any of the answers here before me that I am a big believer in is not expecting the community that doesn't speak English, our Hispanic community, whether it's in Immokalee or Golden Gate, and stop expecting them to come to us. We need to go to them. We need to go to their community centers, to their churches, to their houses if necessary, to help teach them English and teach their parents English. We need to understand that not speaking English is only one obstacle that they have, and another major obstacle is transportation. It's hard for them to get places. Now, one issue that we have to get over is there's a lot of people out there that anytime you mention schools and churches in the same sentence want to freak out. We have to get over that. We have to be willing to understand that our Hispanic community tends to be highly religious, and we need to be willing to accept the fact that if we go into their communities and into their churches and bring these programs to them, they can utilize them more efficiently and help them learn English.
Very good. Now we're going to turn it over to Chad Oliver for a question.
Sure. Thank you all for being here tonight. To the candidates, getting involved in our community, running for office. To all of you, the house is packed, and I think that says a lot about your interest, your desire to make this community better and to learn about the issues and the candidates. So my question is in the same vein as the previous one, and it's the source of pending lawsuit against the Collier County School District. 3 years ago, the district lowered the maximum high school attendance age from 21 down to 19. It also set a policy that says children 17 and older will not be allowed to further enroll in a regular high school program if they are not on track to graduate when they turn 19 years of age. So if you sat on the board, if you're elected, would you push to change the current age cutoff policy or keep the policy the same? Stephanie had the last question. We'll start with Louise.
Well, I think that policy has been set up because children in this country are generally through high school by 17 or 18, but I think that issue comes into play when you have a lot of children coming from other countries later in their life, and they are behind as far as their education. And I think there are times that we have to make exceptions for that, and I'd like to re-examine that. I think maybe 21 is too high, but maybe we should take a look at that, and I would suggest that the school board look at that issue again.
I think 21 is too high because the concern I have with that is that's a drinking age, and we have all been through high school. So that's a concern with that. I talked to a teacher that teaches at Barron Collier High School, and he had a 10th grader come in from a different country. And this 10th grader, I think he said, had a 4th or 5th grade education level. And you can't take a kid that's 16 or 17 years old and put him back in elementary school. I think that's where programs like that's where I went to school. Lorenzo Walker Technical High School would help with situations like that. But I think we could raise it up to 20, but I don't think 21 is a good idea.
Well, one thing I'm not necessarily a big supporter of are hard and fast rules. I think you need to look at a lot of individual cases on an individual basis. I know special needs kids can stay in high school until they're 22. So whether it's 21 or 20, I think if a child has just come here from another country and they're 19 or 20 and they've got a year left to go, and they've demonstrated that they have a desire to finish school, I think you got to take it on an individual basis. I'm not a fan of hard and fast rules that say, no, once you're 20, you can't do this. I think we need to look at things individually, but I would have absolutely no problem with readdressing that issue.
If we can pass that back over here to Stephanie.
That's an issue I would also want to revisit because there are certain situations that you need to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And just like several other people have said up here, when we have students coming in from different countries that are at different levels and may have different ability levels, we need to look at those situations instead of just saying, sorry, you can't come in. So I would want to reevaluate it.
Very good. Now that wraps up our first round, and we're going to go back to Alan for the round 2 of questioning.
Let's go ahead and start with Lee. I think he gets to bat first here on this first question here of the second round. There are folks that say that this race is, these two races are split ideologically, that there's a 3-board faction and there's a 2-board faction, and that will continue depending on who's elected. Convince us that those people are wrong, or are they right?
Well, that's an almost impossible question to answer because you can never predict the future and what issues are going to come up. I mean, you can only go by what your value system is, by what your moral system is, what it is that tells you what's best for children. Because everybody, no matter what your party affiliation or whatever it is, I believe that we all have the best interests of the children at heart. It's just a matter of what do you believe allows you to get there, to do what's best for children. So depending on where I know this is a nasty word in this campaign, but politics are what your value system, because that's all politics means, is what your value and moral system, what allows you to decide what is best. You have to decide where you fall in the spectrum. And if you fall in the spectrum towards the 3 or towards the 2, you can't do that. That's just you can't change that. That's just who you are as a person.
Go back this way with Eric.
So I repeat the question again, Alan, please.
Basically, there are folks that say that these two races are split ideologically to match up with either the 3 majority on the board or the 2 minority.
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to be willing to compromise because you're not always going to agree with everybody. And there's some issues that I've agreed with on both sides of the coin there. But I think the proof's in the pudding. My whole life has been about compromising and working with people. I wouldn't have the successful business that I have if I didn't have that ability. And that shows because I've been asked to speak at Democratic meetings, Republican meetings, and anywhere else, and I go to all of them because it's a nonpartisan race. We've got about 65% minority children in our public school systems, but not one of them is red and not one of them is blue. And I think that's important to understand that. We have to go in there with the idea what's best for the kids, not what's best for what we believe, but what's best for the 46,000 children. Because what I think is best for my child is not necessarily what's best for somebody else's child. I like my son to do certain things. I bring him up in a certain way, but that's not what everybody may think. So it's a tough situation to be in, and it's a tough position to be in because you're serving 46,000 students, and if there's one guardian for each student, that adds up to 82,000 people. And then everybody else who doesn't have skin in the game, they do have skin in the game because they pay taxes and they have a voice as well. So it's a tough position, but you have to be mature to leave everything at the door.
Okay. And if you could pass it over to Louise.
A difficult question, but I think all of us sitting up here would not be running if we did not care about kids. And that's the bottom line, what is best for all of our kids. And I think as a school board member, I think you take each issue individually. We're all individuals. We all have our own morals and principles. And I would vote according to what I feel is right on that particular issue. I'm not going to side with a 3 or a 2 vote to swing the vote. I think you vote what you have inside your own heart and soul. And this is what representing the people is all about. We represent the whole county. We don't represent just a certain portion of it or a certain district. We are voted and we work for the people and the children and the teachers of the community. And I think you just have to be fair and you have to do what you feel in your heart of hearts is right and make the right decision.
When I first entered the race, that was one of the first questions that people wanted to ask was who on the board did I side with? Who did I feel I was most aligned with on the board? And my answer was always none of them. I don't feel that I align with anyone that is currently sitting on the board exactly. Because for me, I represent all of the stakeholders. It's part of the reason why I believe I'm the best candidate. As a parent, as a taxpayer, as a teacher, I can see all sides. And I want to be able to work collaboratively with everybody up there for the best interests of our kids. That's what we're all supposed to be doing. And so I don't side with anybody. I'm entirely my own individual and with my own thoughts and ideas. So my hope is that I can get elected to the board and we can bring some unity.
Very good. Now we're going to take it over to Brent for another question.
Thank you. Who would you like to answer this one first, Amy?
Why don't we start with Louise? And work it.
Have you been interviewed by outside political committees or PACs in order to receive an endorsement, or have any such PACs coordinated with you to campaign or produce campaign materials on your behalf?
No, I have not. I have not talked to anybody that is running a PAC, supports a PAC, is a PAC. I have not been called. I have not talked to them. No emails. None.
The only connection I've had with is a PAC wanted to take photos of me, which I voluntarily did, and that's it.
I'm assuming you don't mean the local Republican Executive Committee.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, then everybody up here met with the Republican Executive Committee to seek their endorsement. So the idea, that was something that was stated in the last question, the idea that it's nonpartisan, if it was nonpartisan, why were we all seeking the Republican Executive Committee's endorsement? But yes, we all did meet with the Republican Executive Committee.
Any others?
That's the only one.
Okay, if we could bring it back down to this end to Stephanie.
As far as the Republican Executive Committee, that is true. We all did interview with them. There was also the Teachers Union, Teachers Association, that held interviews as well. And there is a PAC, a local PAC of women that was started in Naples. They live in Naples. They've been very involved in Naples, and they started a PAC that we've had involvement in as far as emails and photographs, but it's a local organization.
Well, that round went quick. Let's go with Chad now for another question.
Just want to gauge the room. How many of you currently or in your previous life and previous years have worked in public or private education in some form? Raise of hands. Look at that. Thank you. God bless you. My mom was a teacher in Georgia for 25 years. There is a special place reserved for people who choose to go into the teaching profession. So that's my next question for our candidates tonight. We're dealing with a teacher shortage in the state. We've got fantastic teachers. Often they leave after just a few years in the classroom. So I want to hear, what are you going to do to keep great Collier County teachers in the classroom? Who should start? Stephanie, go for it.
I think we need to be listening to our teachers. We need to be hearing what they're saying. They are the ones that are on the line every day with our students, and there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of demands. Some of it is coming down from the state, and some of it is coming from the district. And as a school board member, we should be able to take care of the pressures that are coming down from our district. We need to be able to hear what they're saying and make the changes that are necessary so that they are comfortable and happy in what they're doing. The morale is something else that I think is something that we need to focus on. Having strong leadership in our schools will help with that, but having a united school board, when there's dysfunction on the school board, that trickles down across the board in terms of poor morale. And if there's fighting on the board, we can pretty much expect that there will be fighting down the line. So we need to clear all of that stuff up for the best interests of our students. I think we'll be able to retain more teachers that way.
Great. If you want to pass it over to Louise.
Teacher retention in this country is a huge issue. It's not just in Collier County, it's nationwide. And most teachers, 5%, I think, 5 to 10% of teachers leave after the first 3 years. And, that's really not acceptable to change over. Studies have shown that kids do much better if they have teacher retention and they have the same type of teachers year after year. And I think teachers need to be listened to. I agree with that. I think they need to have more of a voice. I'd love to see more teachers coming to school board meetings. I think if school board meetings are more cohesive and easier to get up and make public comment without being talked back to or whatever, that teachers would come to school board meetings, share their interests there. I think a good principal that is a good organizer and runs the school properly and is open to having teachers come to them with issues and problems is also another way that we can retain teachers. And maybe a mentor for a first-year teacher for a year would be a great idea too.
Very good. Erick?
Another big problem, in the state of Florida, the average teacher makes $47,000 a year. In the state of New York, they make $75,000 a year. So that's a huge issue that we're having in Florida. We also need to understand that what we need to do is we need to give teachers, slow down the pace and guide. I think that puts a lot of pressure on the teachers. And I've talked to a few teachers, and another issue they have is standard-based report cards. And these are things we can change immediately to help, not the pay, of course. These are things we can change immediately to help out with the teachers. So then when they go from elementary school, the student understands more of how the report card works. Rather than a standard-based report card, we keep it even across like we used to have that before. And that's something we can change immediately. But I think what we've got to do also is we've got to listen to our teachers, because the system is backwards. What happens is everything's coming down this way. We're not letting the teachers have a strong enough voice. It needs to come back up this way. I know what happens, teachers get judged by the principals, but wouldn't it be nice if the teachers could judge the principals a little bit and make sure they're giving them the tools they need to be successful? So the pyramid's going this way, it should be upside down and going this way a little bit more.
Great. Lee, we'll give you the last word on this one.
We absolutely need to pay our teachers better. We need to free them up in the classroom. I've talked to more teachers than I can count who have left the business because of because of Common Core. They can't stand dealing with the rigidity and the structure of the day without having the freedom to teach. We've heard a couple of times mentioned that we have to listen to our teachers more, and that's absolutely true. But our current administration at the district has refused to allow teachers to submit anonymous surveys of their bosses at the schools. We have to allow them to do their own surveys of their schools, to hear what they're saying, find out what they think about their bosses, and on up the ladder. Principals do a survey, an anonymous survey of their bosses, and on down the line. We have to allow teachers just the freedom to teach and pay them for it.
Great. Now, Alan, I believe we're going to move now to some of the questions that were solicited and submitted either online or to email.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that we weeded out those questions that were directed to any one candidate, and we're trying to ask out of the reader-submitted questions, ones that are level across the playing field here for everybody. So here's the question we moved from the classroom to the administration. Do you support, oppose, or are you neutral on retaining Kamala Patton as superintendent?
Well, I mean, what I do is everything in my world is based upon performance, and I think you have to look at the performance. We've increased our graduation by 12%. We're at 84% graduation. And what you have to realize, that doesn't mean we have 16% that are dropping out, because the state requires us to have that 84% recorded as a four-year student. So if they take 5 years to graduate, that's not included in the 84%. If they get a GED, that's not included in the 84%. You know, our score went from an A to a B, but we were 22nd, and we've moved up to 14th. So it's dropped down, yes, and only 3 schools have gone to an A, where prior to that there were 22 schools. So even though it's dropped down, we no longer have an F school. So I think that's a gain. We're also looking at paying off our debt in 10 years. We're in debt $354 million. That's going to be paid in 10 years. We're on schedule to build a new high school for $111 million, and that'll be done in 5 years. So in 10 years, we'll have a new high school for $111 million and debt-free for $354 million. That's great to have a government agency that's debt-free. That doesn't happen. Washington should take note. So I think if you look at those gains, I think that's what we have to look at. Do we have improvements? Absolutely. We dropped from an A to a B. And there's other things we can improve on as well. Yeah, I would keep her.
Well, I'm neutral on that. I can't say because I don't know and have privy to all the information of the inner workings of the board and superintendent relationship. But what I will do, though, is address a couple of things that were just said. Yes, we fell from an A to a B, and we went from 22 to 14, but when we were an A district, the percentage scored by our children on state assessments was 62%. We dropped to a B, it's now down to 61%. Okay, so whether we went up to 22 or 14 is irrelevant. The performance went down. That's why the grade went down. Okay? In 2011, we had 30 children score a 5 on the AP science tests from either chemistry, biology, or physics. And last year we had 6. So it's dropped 83%. What we have to do is create an evaluation model that more accurately judges the superintendent. Right now, only about 10% of the evaluation model actually judges student performance for the superintendent. We have to increase that.
I too would be neutral. I don't know Dr. Patton very well. I haven't had the opportunity to get to know her. So I would like to get to know her and find out a little bit more about her management style. I have heard that there are a lot of people in administration that are not really happy, and that morale in some of our schools is quite low. But I don't know if that's a reflection on her or the administration totally, or what it is. But I would like to get into that a little deeper. I'd also like to see her evaluation changed. The evaluation that she's now given is a no-fail evaluation. There's no way she can fail. So I think we need a little bit more of a comprehensive evaluation of her. And I would remain neutral until I got to know her a little better.
Stephanie?
Having been involved with the Collier County Public Schools for the last 12 years, I've had the, I wouldn't call it a privilege, but I've watched 5 different superintendents come in. And Dr. Patton has been a superintendent that I've had a lot of interactions with, and not all positive. I've had to go to her with questions and issues and concerns. And even though I did not always get the answer that I wanted, she was always somebody who listened and made a point to come out to the schools. If there was an issue at the school with several parents, she made a point to come out several times, even to listen and hear what the parents and the community members had to say. So that is something that I respect. Now, like I said, I didn't always get the answers that I wanted, but I believe that she's somebody who is willing to listen and who is willing to work to get our students to have the best education here in Collier County. As far as the, okay.
I see both of you thumbing through your readers' questions. So Brent, do you want to fire one off?
Yeah, a lot of the readers online and here with the cards are interested in the subject of Common Core. If you could use the minute, and I know it'll be hard in that time, but tell us in your mind what Common Core is. Tell us if it's a good thing or a bad thing. And if it's a bad thing, how does Collier County best avoid its worst impacts? Amy, where would you like to see this go first?
Why don't we start with Stephanie since she has the mic? No, I don't. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, no, you start. Eric, if you have it.
Oh, okay.
Hot potato, you got it.
Yeah.
Hot potato.
I didn't see it shifted down there.
The music. Oh, she's got. So, okay.
I
So
bet they want to
I'm
pass
sorry,
that
I
one
was
off.
sleeping when you asked the question because I didn't have the mic in my hand. So what was the question again? Oh, about Common Core. This is the first question I've ever had on Common Core, so I'm not that versed on it. Listen, these are standards that are coming down from the state. So we as a district have to follow the standards. Senate Bill 864 gives us the ability to pick different instructional materials, but that's all we can do. Those instructional materials have to mirror the standards. Our curriculum is designed in-house in our district office by our teachers. They make a curriculum map. And just like any map, if you want to go from here to Charleston, South Carolina, you can go several different ways. Younger people don't, they use GPS so they can't read a map. But you can go several different ways, and that's the autonomy we have in our curriculum. But what drives us to those standards is our instructional materials. So we can adopt different instructional materials than what the state allows us to adopt, but they have to mirror the standards. So that's important to understand that. Because you want them to mirror the standards. You don't want the kids to be unsuccessful with the standards. Now, that all being said, that's what we have to do. We need to change Common Core. It needs to go away, and the state is doing that slowly. They changed it 2 years ago, and you have to realize that we adopt our books once every 6 years. So it's not a light switch that the state can turn off, because if it was, they would. Because if they turn it off, they'll have 67 districts that have books by law that match the old standards. So that could set the state up for a lawsuit.
I knew it was going to be a challenge getting that question in 1 minute, but let's give it a try, Lee.
Well, first off, Common Core is not a set of standards from the state. It's a set of standards and a curriculum that has come down from the federal government. It was dangled in front of the states with the premise and the guidance that they must take Common Core in order to get federal money. So it's not from the state. It's from the feds. Now, absolutely, Senate Bill 864 allows us as a district to choose our own educational materials, okay? They can be better than Common Core. We know that Dr. Sandra Stotsky recommended a curriculum and educational materials that she feels is better than Common Core. She's only the person who sat on the Common Core Validation Committee who refused to sign off after writing the English Language Arts standards for Massachusetts. Now, we know that Common Core is more than a set of standards, that it's a curriculum, because even the founder or the person who wrote Common Core is on videotape saying that there is no force on earth strong enough to prevent teachers from teaching to the test. So it is a curriculum. Now, as far as the issue of us choosing materials that aren't, quote, Common Core, and we don't want to set the kids up for failure, there's a charter school right here in Collier County right now that uses 0 Common Core materials, and they've been an A school 2 years in a row without any Common Core.
Louise?
We all know Common Core is an English and math standard curriculum that was started across the country so that kids in North Carolina or California or Florida are getting the same education. And what needs to be changed is what's used for the curriculum. The only thing we have to do is take the Florida standardized assessment tests. We can use any kind of curriculum we want, and that needs to be done. There's already people lobbying in Tallahassee for that. And I would hope that we could unify the board enough that we could also do that. We could lobby in Tallahassee and with some strong support, maybe get our own curriculum implemented in this district.
Stephanie?
As a teacher, I had an opportunity to write curriculum in New Jersey based off of the New Jersey state standards. So the way it works is the standards are not from the federal government. There was a board of governors that developed the Common Core standards, and each state had an opportunity of whether or not they were going to adopt them. The federal government offered an incentive program if states did adopt, but several didn't, and we didn't have to. Florida chose to adopt 85% of the Common Core standards and then worked on their own for the other 15%. Now, they're not perfect, and there's a lot of work to be done with the Common Core standards, but to throw them out, I think would set us back so far. I think that what we need to focus on is the standards that we don't like or the standards that we don't think are successful, and continue to lobby the state to make those changes. We have an opportunity with the new Every Student Succeeds Act to do that. It's our opportunity, and every parent and school board member alike should be lobbying the state and sending letters about the things that we don't like about Common Core, because we have an opportunity right now to make that change.
Very good. Now, Chad, I believe you've gone through some questions for us.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit deeper, kind of peel another layer off the onion, so to speak. The person in the audience tonight wants to know, if we drop Common Core, how do we handle the lack of federal funds for our budget? And so if you agree that Collier County shouldn't follow those Common Core standards, how do you plan to fill that gap in money? And then if you don't feel that way, then state that.
I'll start with Stephanie.
Okay, I do not think that we can throw out Common Core. That would be good for us even if we could do it. I don't think that that's what we need to do. Like I just said before, I think that we have an opportunity right now to focus on the things that we don't like. If there are standards that we don't think are written well, then we have an opportunity to address that. Just to give you an example, because I wrote one down today, I was looking, my son's in 3rd grade. One of the 3rd grade language arts standards says, determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text, distinguishing literal from non-literal language. Okay, there's a lot of leeway with that standard, but is there something negative? Is there something bad about that standard? The standards are not all bad. Like I said, there are some that I'm sure we want to adjust or we can work with, but these are standards that are rigorous standards, and they're higher in many cases than when we were at school. But again, there are several that we need to work on them, and that's something that I think we need to do.
Thank you. If you pass that over to Louise.
Well, the federal money issue was, we started discussing that early in this campaign, and it had to do with the transgender issue. And now all of a sudden we're tying it to Common Core. I don't agree with that. I don't think that the federal government is ever going to stop our federal funding if we implement our own core curriculum into our standards. And what I'm talking about is that we don't do this overnight. We don't just throw Common Core out with the bathwater. We wait till we have something more solid, something that's already set up in our school system to take over before we switch into another type of curriculum. So this is something that needs to be done over time, once we do all our due diligence, and not something that's done quickly. And I don't think we'd ever lose federal funding.
Erick?
Well, in the beginning, the whole conversation was the 57 million tied to Common Core, and then it moved to transgender issue. But you have to realize Common Core is coming from the state, and that's $94 million that they give us. So where's the money there? So, but the thing is, these are standards dictated by the state. So if we don't follow these standards, that'll negatively impact our students. They just did this in Orlando. I think it was Orlando. Parents decided that they're going to opt out their third graders from taking standardized testing. Those kids are held back now. And they're trying to sue, and it got thrown out from what I understand. Those were A and B students. That's how impactful these tests are. And that's a shame that they are that impactful. They should not be that punitive for the student nor for the teacher. But it is what it is. So we just can't drop it overnight. We have to stick what the state says for us to do, because it's more than just the money. It's a matter of fact of a child graduating and not being able to go to Harvard because their high school diploma is the equivalent of a GED. And we can't do that to parents. I'm not willing to do that to a parent.
Lee, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, what I've heard so far is a lot of scare tactics, because nobody has mentioned or nobody has told you the truth, in that neither myself nor anybody that I know of has mentioned or said that we would opt out of the state testing, because that's what this is tied to. That's what the money is tied to, is the testing, not the curriculum. The state of Florida, as admitted right here on this panel, the state of Florida has already created a law that allows us to choose our own curriculum and educational materials. So that has no bearing on funding, whether it be from the state or from the federal government for Common Core. No bearing whatsoever. It has to do with the testing. You must test by federal law or by federal mandate. Actually, it's not even a law. You must test 95% of your kids in order to remain compliant, okay? That's where the kids that are opting out are becoming an issue. But it's nothing but scare tactics. I haven't said we're going to opt out of the testing. We have to take the tests. That's the law. But we don't have to use the material and the curriculum. If you get rid of the heart of Common Core, which is the material and the curriculum, you essentially get rid of Common Core regardless of having to do the testing or not.
Thank you very much. Now, Alan, I believe you have another question.
Here's another question from the audience, and let's go ahead and start with Lee and work our way back
Sure.
down here. Here's the question. Some parents are concerned about age-inappropriate literature in our schools and media centers. How is a parent to protect their child? Video games and movies are rated to protect minors. What about books, or at least parental notification and permission?
Well, I know that we significantly need a much better parental notification program when it comes to the books that are in our school libraries. There was actually just a story on the news the other day. I believe it was Nassau County that just had an issue with 2 books that their covers looked innocent enough. TTYL, talk to you later, and when you open the book and start reading it, and this was in a middle school library that was filled with sexual language. We know we have books in our libraries right now in middle school for kids as young as 11 that do that. As a matter of fact, at a school board meeting last year, there was a parent who got up and tried to read from one of these books, and the board chair wouldn't let him because the language was so bad. So, as a parent, we need to know what books are in our libraries. Books that have explicit language like this need to be segregated exclusively, and before any book can ever be looked at or even touched by a child, the parent needs to be notified that the book is there and that their child has requested to check this book out, because right now it's not good enough.
Pass it down to Erick, please.
Well, my experience has been just that. My son wanted to read a book, a series of books, and the teacher, contacted me and said, he wants to read these series of books, and they were dark. They weren't pornography based, but they were dark, more like a Harry Potter type of thing, which wasn't what I was thrilled for him to read. But he loved the books, and he read them all. He read all the series of the books. So I think we have to be careful when we start censoring books. I think parents do need to know what books are in the library, and parents do need to have an option to say, no, my child can't read that book. But I see that happening in the district. I see that happening in my son's school. So we have to be careful when we start censoring books, that we don't start crossing the line and censor books that some people think are inappropriate and other people think that are appropriate. And that's a line that we have to be careful of.
Well, I think we have a Sunshine. I know we have Sunshine Standard reader lists, and a lot of those books on those lists are very simplified books to get our kids to read. That's what I've been told. This is why they have those books on the list, because kids don't want to read classics like Huckleberry Finn or Little Women. although some of those books are on the B appendix in the Common Core curriculum, which any teacher can access and use. So some of the Sunshine Reader books, and this probably doesn't apply to them because those are younger grades, but some of those books have a lot of information in them that you don't want middle school kids reading even, let alone younger kids. I think maybe a closer look and a redo of those Sunshine Reader lists would be appropriate. And I think parents need to be notified. They need to be asked, is this okay for my child to be reading this book? And that is the teacher's responsibility when they're starting a lesson in the class or they're assigning a book for the kids to read, that it should be something that the parents can know about and see.
As a parent, I, of course, am a huge proponent of parent involvement. The more parent involvement, the better, in my eyes. But I have not seen this issue. As far as the Sunshine State Standards, my daughter, ever since she's been in 3rd grade, has made it a goal of hers to read every single one of them. There's usually 23 to 25 of them, and there has not been one of those books that has been even mildly inappropriate. Furthermore, they're not poor literature. Some of them are Newbery Award winners, Caldecott Awards. There are fabulous books on those lists. Just because they're newer books does not mean that the literature is any less valid or important or well-written than classics. As far as having grade or ratings on these books, I think that that's something that we could discuss, but having parents being able to be notified if their child is reading a book that is mildly inappropriate is what is going on, and that happened with my daughter, who is she's a very accelerated reader and was reading books that were above her level, and the teacher sent a note home. Sorry.
Now, Brent, we have another viewer submitted question.
From the audience, yes. Piggying back from the library to the classroom, a member of our audience asked, do you believe the textbooks in use in Collier County contain an unbalanced liberal view of our country? And if so, what can the school board do to address this?
Just give Louise a chance to start that one.
I think probably I've read several, not in entirety, but I've read several of the books that are being used in civics and history classes, and it is very unbalanced. And I think that the school board has the ability to look at the textbooks that are used under the law, and I think that maybe a reevaluation of some of our material is warranted at this point. I would really vote for that if I was on the school board, to take a look at what we're using for our kids in the classroom.
Erick?
My son just finished 7th grade. He's going into 8th grade, and in 7th grade is when they teach civics. I saw nothing unbalanced, and I was very aware, and I helped him every lesson. I looked at all the material that was in his book. It gives a viewpoint of different items and different things. Like, for instance, it gives a viewpoint on the Middle East and what's happening there, and on Israel and things like that. It gives a different viewpoint, but I think it's fair and balanced. And I think our children need to know what's going on in the rest of the world, especially in the Middle East, because that's the new scare world right now, is the Middle East, as we all know.
Well, first I wanted to start by defining the word censor. We had another scare tactic phrase that was used a few minutes ago about censoring books. Censoring a book is when you open a book and you take a black marker and you mark out what you don't like. That is censoring a book. Choosing book A over book B when you can't choose both is not censoring books. That's just called economics. When you can't pick them both, you have to pick one over the other. Now, as far as our books that we use, yes, they're unbalanced. When we have U.S. history books that gloss over the founding of the country and skip right to the Civil War, that is unbalanced. When we have U.S. history books that when they discuss World War II, how would any veterans in the room, how would you like it as a veteran to have your U.S. history books ignore the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and when they discuss the nuclear bombs on Japan, discuss them from the viewpoint of a Japanese survivor? How would you as an American veteran feel about that book? That's unbalanced.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I don't see the major unbalance in our classrooms. One of the things that nobody has mentioned or that we need to remember is that a textbook is just one small tool that is being used in a classroom to educate our students. We rely on our teachers and a variety of other materials that teachers can pull from to teach our kids history. So the textbook is just one tool. We have trained, experienced teachers, and we need to trust them to do their job.
And Chad, I think we'll turn it over to you for another question from the viewers.
This one is coming from an audience member asking about the specific policy. If you were elected to the board, would you advocate for or against? And really, it's regarding bathroom use. And so it's important because people in my business, our business, ask about policy, ask about district stances on this issue, for example. The person in the audience wants to know, do you believe children can use any bathroom they choose? If so, are there restrictions? And with this, the person asks, can adults visiting schools use any bathroom they choose? If you were elected to the board, how would you advocate for or against in terms of policy regarding this?
Who'd you like to start off with?
Who started the last one? Louise did, so Eric? Did you start the last round? Okay, take it away, Eric.
No, I don't think they should be able to use any bathroom they choose. They should use the bathroom of their gender. And the thing of it is, when you go into a school in Collier County, they take your driver's license and scan it. And if you're a pedophile, you're not allowed to go in that school. And if you have a record, you can't go in that school. I know because there's another guy in Collier County who has the same name as me, and they always look at me and say, no, that's not you. So we look a little different. So no, absolutely not. They need to use the bathroom of their gender.
Should children, though, be able to use any bathroom they choose?
Oh, no, same thing, same answer.
Lee?
No, you should not, whether you're a child or an adult, should not be able to choose which bathroom you're going to use. You should use the bathroom that is your gender. The school district was handling this issue of transgender bathrooms quietly and appropriately before the federal government got involved. Again, federal overreach into local education, okay? The issue becomes federal overreach. Now what's going to happen is, because of this, though the Supreme Court just shot it down, but it's going to come back, but the issue is going to be federal overreach and what they have the right to tell a local school district to do. And that's where local control needs to come in. We need to have our own policies and our own abilities, and it was being handled appropriately before the feds got involved and would force kids into the public when they should never have been that way.
Why don't we bring it down to Stephanie, so Louise will get the last word on this one.
Okay, I do agree that students should be using the bathroom of their gender. As far as the transgender issue, it has been being handled locally quite well to the satisfaction of everyone involved. And more times than not, children that are dealing with the transgender issue, they don't want to use either group bathrooms. They want to use a private one in the nurse's office. And I think that that needs to be available. That needs to be an option available to them. And so the only way to do that, I see, is by keeping it as a local control issue and having school board or students and principals make the decision together.
And we'll give Louise the last word.
Common sense, really. A child should use the bathroom of their gender, just like people visiting the school. And as far as the transgender issue, I think the schools have handled that very well on an individual basis. Parents coming talking to the principal with the child and finding a comfortable space for that child to use the bathroom. So I just think it's a no-brainer. It's common sense.
Very good. Now, Alan tells me we have enough time and enough questions to take another round from the audience questions. If you'd like to start us off.
Yeah, let's have Louise go ahead and start with this one. Do you think that the way to educate ESL teenagers would be to have a specialized school like PACE for them?
No, I don't think so. I think they need to be integrated into the mainstream of the classroom. I would like to see them have extra help, if that's possible, help that is not provided by the teacher in that classroom, because that teacher's overwhelmed already. I think if there's a certain period during the day that they could go to another room with other children to get the extra attention, the extra help. That would be a good way to handle that. But I would not put them in a separate school. No.
Erick?
Yeah, I think they should be in the school with everybody. I think it'll give them the opportunity to learn more and build up. Louise, I'm not stealing your purse, I promise, honey. So I think it gives them the opportunity to be around their peers, and that will bring them up and allow them to learn from their peers. I think bringing them separately will actually not help them learn. Being around people that you're trying to achieve, want to be the goals they're trying to achieve, I think will help you. So it should not be a separate school.
No, I don't think it should be a separate school as well. I think they need to be integrated in the school with their English-speaking peers to help learn English. We know it can be done. I actually have there's friends of ours that go to Taekwondo with my son that are actually moved here 2 years ago from Switzerland, and their kids were in the 3rd and 4th grades, and they didn't speak any English when they moved here. And by the end of the first year, being integrated in class at Pelican Marsh did an outstanding job with them. By the end of their first year, they were reading and speaking English very well by being integrated in the classroom.
Okay, if you could bring it back down to Stephanie.
Yeah, I don't agree with segregation in any parameters. All students should have the opportunity to be with all other students of the same age levels, and having good role models is something that affords them, whether they are non-English speaking or whether they have a developmental disability. Having children all together in a classroom together allows them to see how other children are behaving, and hopefully they will all rise to the occasion and meet all of those challenges.
Great. Brent, do you have another question from our audience?
I do. More than one person has asked us about this, so I'll put it to the candidates. Do you support Blue Zones as an initiative of the Collier County Public Schools? And where do we go with that?
And Louise just grabbed the mic, so we'll let you speak.
Wait, you went first last time.
I know. I've got.
I'll go first.
Keep her busy, I'll get her purse.
I have nothing against Blue Zones. I'm in favor of healthy eating and healthy and exercise for good health. And I think we live in a very healthy community. We're lucky to have the ability to get out and be outside every day and do amazing things, swimming, golfing, whatever is your choice. But I just think the way that the Blue Zones was brought to our schools and pushed through, I just think that the short period of time that we had as a trial was not enough. And I think that the vote was cast that night. Four out of the 5 members were present to vote on Blue Zones, and I think that should not have been allowed. All school board members were a small school board. They should have been present for the vote. It should have been tabled. And I think a little bit more investigation should have been done before that vote was taken.
I think it's a positive initiative for our community and for our school systems. I mean, we have to look at what's going on. The Pentagon said obesity is becoming a matter of national security when 1 in 3 children cannot make the military because of the obesity issue, and that's with the military changing the standards from 13% body fat to 26% body fat. So we've got to do something different. We've got to try something different because what we're doing is not working. That's why we're in a healthcare crisis right now, and if this continues, it's only going to get worse for our country. So we have to think of the future, and we have to think about that. I think it's a great initiative. I think it's giving children more choices. It's giving them healthier choices, and that's what I like to see. And a lot of the things we've already been doing, so it's not like we added more on the plate. Like we were doing a garden to table type of idea, bringing in fruit from Immokalee and putting it in our schools, fresh vegetables and fruits and things of that nature. And that's doing 2 things. That's exchanging money in our community. And the Chamber of Commerce says every time you exchange $1 to a local business, or it changes 3 times in that community. And that's important. And it's ideas like that that brought this community out of the recession. And the school is a big part of that. And we were doing these initiatives before Blue Zone was even around.
Thank you. Lee?
No, I do not support Blue Zone in the public schools. I support the premise behind Blue Zone. That's why I serve on the Wellness Committee at North Naples Middle School, where we make those decisions every day for our staff and students and to promote health and wellness. I do not support, though, any government entity dictating to me as a parent what I may or may not put in my child's lunchbox. Now, we know we talk about this being adding choices. There's 21 policies in the Blue Zone School Pledge, and fully 11 of them either restrict or prohibit or require something. That's not adding choice. That's prohibiting or requiring something. That's not choice. Blue Zone School Pledge policy number 5 states, prohibit the sale and consumption of sodas or other sugar-sweetened beverages on campus, comma, including those brought from home. That specifically tells me as a parent what I can or cannot put in my child's lunchbox. I don't support that. If you want to be a private entity and have Blue Zones, great, but not in a public government entity.
Thank you very much. And Stephanie?
Well, the choice comes in the fact that you don't have to choose that as one of the things that you want to implement if you are a Blue Zone school. Furthermore, I want to say that the schools have the choice. It's voluntary whether or not you want to opt in to be a Blue Zone rated school. I know that because I sit on the parent-teacher organization at my child's school, and it came to a vote whether or not we were going to opt in. And as a SAC and a parent and the PTO, they opted not to right off the bat. So it didn't happen at my children's school right now because the parents had an opportunity to vote on it. But as far as the Blue Zones list, you have a choice of all of those different things. And personally, I don't think it's a bad idea to limit the sale of soda and junk in the schools. We see what is being served at our schools, and I'd like to address that too in another situation. But the fact that kids will buy lunch and then go toss it to go get the ice cream and the sugary stuff that is for sale, I don't think that's benefiting them. We're trying to give them healthy options, and I think that's good.
Okay, now Chad, do you have another one for us?
We sure do. This is about a teacher trying to come into Collier County from another district and work here in Collier. Would you support, this is coming from someone in the audience, would you support any incoming teacher seeking employment here to be given credit for years of experience instead of the current 10-year max? Let's start with Erick on this one.
Well, yeah, I would be for that, but I would also look at what the teacher wants to do. If they're going to come in for 2 years and then retire, then that's an issue. It's just like how I would look at it in a business, and it happened during the recession as well. These great tile guys went to Home Depot to get a job, but they wouldn't hire them because they knew as soon as things got better, they were gone to make the real money. So I think that's what we have to look at too. If we're spending high-end dollars for a teacher that's only going to work for 2 or 3 more years, I'd rather see us get a teacher that's going to be with us for a longer time. So we're building in that longevity, and I think that's important to do. But I want to go back to Blue Zone real quick. The prohibited sales and the consumption and bringing them in, the district's not pursuing that. I have the information right here, so if anybody would like to see it afterwards, I can show you. The district's actually not pursuing that part of it. So if you want to send your kid into school with a Velveeta and Spam sandwich and a root beer, you can. It doesn't matter. You're allowed to.
Okay. We'll see what Lee has to say about that.
What the individual school or district chooses to pick, whether they pick policy number 5 or not, is irrelevant to the premise behind the Blue Zone. We're already the #1 rated healthiest area in the country, as told to us by the parent company of Blue Zone. Okay, that's not my opinion. That's the parent company of Blue Zone has already said Naples is the healthiest place in the country. So, now, should a teacher? Yeah. I think again, it has to be on a case-by-case basis. You have to look at what district are they coming from. Are they coming from a poor district? Are they coming from a great district? What do they teach? What is our demand? What need do we have for that teacher? Again, it comes back to supply and demand and incentivizing. If we know we have a shortage of Algebra 2 teachers, and here comes a person with 10 years experience teaching Algebra 2 at a great school district, I think we should be able to pay them whatever they require to bring them on. Utilize their experience, but it needs to be on a case-by-case basis.
Great. How about Stephanie?
I would love to see us have the opportunity to take in every teacher on a case-by-case basis and decide whether or not they're going to get paid this or that. but there has to be some guidelines. And working with the teachers and talking to them is one way to develop a plan or guidelines that they think are fair. And again, the more people that are involved in this situation that we can involve in the solution, the better the outcome will be.
Great. Louise?
I think it's an individual, personal, case-by-case basis also. You have to look at all the criteria that teacher's bringing to the school and to the district, and if she fits or if we need her or him, or it's a very individual thing. It's hard to say yes or no to that question. But you know, our teachers now are paid according to the number of years they've been teaching and the number of degrees they have, which is fine, but I would be a proponent of some merit pay for these teachers too. I support totally teacher pay increase across the board. I think it needs to be done for us to retain teachers. But I think some merit pay for teachers that are doing an outstanding job in their classroom, not based on test results, but what they're doing with these kids individually. That's something I'd really like to look into, that reward system. And one last note on blue zones. You know, I think about the principals and the teachers in these schools that don't jump on board with blue zones. What's going to happen to them? You know, are they going to be singled out by administration? I feel sorry for them. And I think it's really something we have to think about.
We had a lot of great questions from both the panelists and you, the audience. I'd like to thank you for that. And now it's time to move on to our closing statements. And why don't we start from the reverse end as the beginning, and that would be Lee.
Okay. Well, let me just say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight, to the Naples Daily News, to NBC, to Amy for putting this forum on. You know, I am very passionate when it comes to my kids' education. I've been involved with their education going back 12, 14 years, back to sitting in my oldest son's principal's office discussing why his math homework wasn't being graded anymore, to sitting in the superintendent's office at the time that we had the debacle of block scheduling here in Collier County, trying to figure out why we had it and what the problem was with that and how we could fix it. You know, I'm invested in the community. I support public schools. I went to public schools myself in Dade County. We have to strive here to be the best in the state of Florida. Okay? Right now, everything we see, whether it's articles in the Naples Daily News or whether it's press releases from the district, is everything has to do with just beating the state average. There are 67 districts in the state. I don't think we should settle for being 32 or 31 because we're just beating the state average. We should be providing the best education possible. We shouldn't be settling for 33% college and career ready graduates in Collier County. We shouldn't be settling for, as last year's ACT test results tell us, only 18% of our test takers in Collier County were college ready in all 4 subjects that tested on the ACT. That is unsatisfactory here in Collier County with the resources that we have. So I ask for your vote. Whether you've already voted, hopefully you voted for me, or whether you vote next week during early voting or on August 30th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you could hand that to Eric, please. You have a minute and a half.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks for Naples Daily for being here. Good to see everybody. We need a proven business leader with experience that understands district finances and shows financial responsibility in their own life, not someone who can't even manage his own finances. We need someone that will prepare our students for a successful career. I understand the needs of our graduates, whether it's a need for a career or continue on to college. I understand the needs of the community and how to make a strong middle class in the community through a skilled workforce. I understand how to listen to the community. I've done it for 24 years in Collier County. We don't need a bully on the board. We need a proven leader with integrity of character who will stand up for our students. We need leadership skills. I have the leadership skills that create jobs. I have the leadership skills of government experience. I have strong character that has grown my business. My strong character and leadership skills have given me experience to work with others. The proof of that is I've collaborated, and I've received support from Democrats, Republicans, and independents. This is the leadership skills we want for our children, for our schools, and for our community. A vote for me is a vote for financial responsibility. A vote for me is a vote for collaboration. A vote for me is a vote for proven and successful leadership experience. Vote for me on August the 30th, Erick Carter. Thank you.
And Louise, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, and thank you, Naples Daily News. We had some great questions, some different ones, a little bit more so tonight. I appreciate all that from everybody. I'm committed to this community. I have spent many, many years here. I've been here since '98, and I have invested my time, my talent in the community, and I intend to continue to do that, whether I'm elected to the school board or not. I will continue my work of mentoring and volunteering and board activity. I feel passionate about education. That shows in what I've done with the children of Immokalee, the money I've helped raise, the kids I've mentored, how they've gone on, the parents I've met, the schools I've worked in. I will work hard as a school board member. I have the leadership skills. I have the diligence and the hard-working skills to persevere and be an excellent school member. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support for me on August 30th, or if you've already sent in your absentee ballot, thank you, or vote early. Voting starts Saturday. Thank you very much.
Now, Stephanie.
Well, I'm Stephanie Lucarelli, and what I want you to take away from here tonight is that as a parent who's been involved in this school district for 12 years and is a former teacher, and with 4 kids in all different schools and different ability levels, I've been involved. And I have watched our district change. We have a good school district. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. There are a lot of things that we can work on, and with my background and my experience working in New Jersey at always top-rated schools, I think I can bring something different to the school board. As far as being able to represent all of the different stakeholders, that's something we haven't seen on our school board in a really long time. There are so many issues right now as far as trust and respect and low morale. And having somebody who will be visible and at the schools. I have a first grader. I'm going to be at these schools for a really long time. Naples Park might be sick of me, but it's been 12 years and I have 5 more to go. But I will be there and I will be visible and I will be accessible to anybody who wants to come and talk to me. There are things that I want to try and be able to do where I have an open door 1 hour a week where people can come in and talk to me about whatever it is. I won't be able to solve all of their problems, but I want to listen. And I think that that is something so vital and something that we need to see on our school board so that we can bring everybody back together. I ask you for your support and I ask you for your vote. Vote Lucarelli.
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes our program. On behalf of the Naples Daily News, we thank you for coming and being so attentive. It looks like we finished a few minutes early. Maybe they'll stick around for a few minutes to meet some folks. Thank you. Thank you.